Dan Kerby, welcome to Australian Musician.
Hey, Greg, nice to see you, mate. Nice to link up on here. How you
Yeah,
going?
not too bad. So, where have you been spending your isolation and what sort of plans have you had to put aside this year?
Yeah, good question. So I've been spending my isolation at home. I live in Albert Park. So obviously in Melbourne, so just amongst the thick of it down here. Um, I've kind of spent a lot of time in my studio up till my drum studio where I teach drums. I spent a lot of time in there up till stage four hit. And since then I've been kind of stuck at home, which is okay. Had a fair few things cancelled. So there was meant to be, I believe, a Bliss N Eso tour this year. Also had some 28 days shows locked in, which were postponed, which I don't think will happen now. And then, yeah, I probably had another tour in November with another band that I was going to jump in on. So I've had quite a lot of gigs kind of cut. But I am one of the lucky ones. I do have a couple of jobs, so I don't really rely on playing gigs to live. So I'm thankful and lucky on that front. It's just a bit of a mix up. I teach drums as well. I haven't been teaching drums this stage four lockdown. In the stage three, I did a lot of online stuff. But I've kind of stopped that so I can record my course and digitize it because that in itself is a ridiculously large job. Yeah, so I've spent every day doing that, which
Yeah,
has been cool. I've learned heaps of new skills. Like my video editing chops are well on point at the minute.
good to hear. Um,
Yeah.
Going way back, mate. What was the inspiration for getting into drums?
Yeah, so for me, my father was a drummer and a drum teacher. So I was lucky enough to grow up in a household where there was a drum kit in the shed. So I grew up in Ballarat, regional Vic, drum kit out the back. My dad had a Sonar, which I've still got now, and it just started there. Just started with watching him play the drums, and then I would just go into the drum shed and just like even when I was 2, 3 years old, just play drums. I didn't think really about being in a band or anything like that. I didn't even really connect the dots. I knew drummers were in bands, but I didn't really think I didn't really think about that. I just liked playing drums.
Yeah.
So it basically started there. I'd spend hours tucked away. My dad would just help me a little bit. So it was cool.
Well, as you did get older, who were the drummers that you admired?
Yeah, so my dad was a drum teacher, as I mentioned, so he kind of put me on to a lot of I guess, the kind of stuff from the 80s. His favorite drummer was Steve Gadd. So I had a lot of Steve Gadd licks and rudiments and things like that he would put me onto. So I naturally gravitated towards a lot of that kind of nice ghost nutty funk type stuff. But then for me, when I grew up a little bit, I loved Travis Barker and some of the gospel drummers, Aaron Spears, guys like that. Even now, in my older age, I look up to a lot of the local guys like your Stan Bicknells and Stevie Cat Juniors, even Ben, who was on your podcast, the last episode, I believe. But yeah, it kind of, I look at a lot of the Aussie guys these days.
Yeah, cool. You're lucky that you have some local endorsements with Pearl Drums, Zildjian, and Vic Firth. What does that mean to you? How does that help you out?
Yeah, so I mean, having those specifics, I've got Zildjian, Vic Firth, Remo, and Pearl, and those, and also Zoom. Those specific four drum brands have helped me out a lot. Like all drummers, I was poor, especially in uni. Just kind of like, when you're a uni kid or a high school kid and you want the best stuff, you want a Zildjian cymbal, you want a Zildjian crash because, the good stuff sounds way better than the bad stuff, but it's so expensive and you crack it, especially because I hit pretty hard. So I was very poor when I was in my early 20s. I was a uni student, I was living out of home and I'd be cracking cymbals and if there's another $500 gone. So it was really tough. So my point is when I got endorsed in my early 20s, it really helped out because I didn't really have to worry too much about that. Obviously, I'd get them for half price or whatever, and that helped. And then repairs, or replacements, I haven't really had to buy a cymbal for 10 years. So, it really, really helps, especially those ones. The drum ones are incredible, especially for touring, so backline support. it's a nice little salon to some of the artists that I play with. So for them to know that their drummer doesn't have to hire a kit at every gig, you don't have to hire a kit for the whole tour or whatever, it saves them thousands of dollars literally. So I kind of, you know, use that to my advantage in the sense that I can say to the artist, say, if you hire me, you don't have to bloody hire a drum kit. So it's been really, really good, and I'm very thankful for it. And you know, Justin Malseed, he has been a massive supporter, even through the times where I wasn't really playing in bands. So obviously, you know, for the last 10 years, I've been lucky enough to be in some great bands, but there was also some times there where I wasn't really doing much, and those sponsors never went anywhere. You know what I mean? They kind of stuck with me and gave me the exact same support, whether I was playing in a really big band that was doing really well or playing for 10 people, you know, when no one cared. So much respect to Justin Malseed. I think it's a lot of it's about relationships, and he is a stand-up gentleman and a big supporter, and he's done a lot for me, not only with the equipment and stuff, but in terms of linking me up with people, you know, other drummers from overseas and things like that. I've been using a Pearl crystal beat for the last probably 3 years. I used that on a big run that I did with Bliss N Eso, which was cool because I lit that up, and I had our lighting guy was in control of how that looked. So in terms of that being a part of the set, that was really cool. Also sounds great. I find the crystal beats really easy to tune, and the drums really punch through. So I've got a 10-inch up the top, the 16, and then sometimes a 14 on the left. And the reason for that is some of the drum parts of the Bliss N Eso, because they are hip hop and there's a lot of overlapping loops, and they're written by producers, not necessarily drummers. Some of the drum parts are quite different in the sense that it's probably not something that I would write at being a drummer. So therefore I need to incorporate my left hand onto a really low floor tom down here. So that's one little fact about that. But 28 days, I use a Masters. I use a 12 and a 16, and then a 14-inch, what's my snare? Pearl something, 14-inch, sounds great. It's a metal snare, but anyway, the reason I'm telling that is because I use bigger drums for 28 days, because it just kind of, with Bliss N Eso, there's a lot of backing stuff, so the smaller drums kind of work, they're nice and punchy, but then with 28 days, I like to have kind of bigger sounding drums that I guess are fatter, bigger, so it kind of, you know, because there's no backing in that. Yeah. If that makes sense.
You've also got a Zildjian cymbals endorsement. What do you require from your cymbals?
So for me personally, I like kind of, for each band, I like using different cymbals. So with the rock stuff, I use bigger crashes, 18-inch A's, 19-inch A's, always use a 21-inch crash ride K. And then with the Bliss N Eso stuff, I like smaller cymbals that don't have as much sustain. So I use lots of effect cymbals, lots of 14. I use a 14-inch A EFX. I use 3 of them across my kit. I use a 16-inch K EFX. So yeah, lots of splashes and small effect cymbals for Bliss N Eso, because I don't want to be too noisy and too powerful behind the boys, because it's kind of a different style. Whereas with the rock stuff, the only place the beat's coming from is me, and I can be as loud as I want. So I use bigger drums and bigger cymbals.
Yeah. In regard to your sticks, Vic Firth sticks, people who aren't into drumming might say, well, how can the variation of a drumstick make any difference? Can you explain the sticks you use and why?
Yeah. So I've been using 5As for a long time. I was on 5Bs, which were obviously a little bit fatter, thicker. Then I was on the longer extreme 5As for a couple of years. But then the more I played and the more styles I jumped between, I found that I just liked them being a bit shorter. So I stuck to the 5A. When I was playing with one of my groups behind Crimson Eyes, there's some really difficult, fast and intricate hand patterns in some of the beats. And I was actually using the Jojo Mayer Vic Firth stick, because that was a little bit shorter again than a Vic Firth 5A. So I found that when I was playing those really fast, intricate things, the Jojo Mayer 5A stick, wasn't a 5A, the Jojo Mayer stick was incredible for that. But then when I went to play live with it, because it was painted, because it was white, I found it slippery when I started to sweat. So that was really the only time when I played with Behind Crimson Eyes that I jumped between sticks. So sometimes I would use the Jojo Mayer stick for some of the fast stuff, and then I would swap it out to a normal 5A, which would allow me to still sweat and not get so slippery. So yeah, there's a couple of little pointers for you around drumsticks.
Yeah. The modern day drummer has a lot to contend with compared to drummers in the 70s or even into the 80s, dealing with in-ear monitoring and using sample pads. How do you and technology get along?
Yeah, good. I love playing to a click track. I used to hate it when I first started because it was hard. But now it's easier because you know exactly where you're meant to be. It's like these days, instead of it being a difficult task, I find it as an easy task, and it's almost like cheating because it's just security to me to know that I'm in time and I know exactly where I'm sitting within the track, right? A little tip there is I love having a high, I'll click on the 1, because sometimes I have played songs where the click's the same the whole way through, and I'll be halfway through like a middle A section or something, I'll be like, I hope I'm at the right spot here. I hope I'm about to come in on the 1. You know what I mean? And you just have to go. Every now and then, like your mind might slip out and you're like, oh man, I hope I'm on. I hope I'm on. I hope I'm on. Anyway, I had been on each time, but yeah, good little tip. Have a high click on the 1 so you can always know where that 1 is. So click track stuff, sweet. In terms of technology, I use the Roland SPDSX, which is fantastic. And I'm about to incorporate more of that. Hopefully when I get back out with Bliss N Eso, there's a lot of the newer stuff's kind of 808 drums, and that's the sound they want live. So I'll be incorporating a lot of sample onto my kit. And then obviously real kit as well. So I'll kind of be using a hybrid moving forward, which is going to be cool. I don't know the exact setup of how that's going to be yet because I haven't done it, but that's the plan. So moving forward, that's going to be fun. And I'm sure that's going to change the way I play. I'll have to be kind of more mindful to not add too many little things, or maybe not do ghost notes on the snare that's triggered or whatever. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be fun.
One of the things that you did in your career that was interesting, you toured Afghanistan and played to the troops, which is something that not many musicians can say they've done. Tell me about the experience.
Yeah, that was probably the coolest tour ever. In a nutshell, it's the real deal. You go to the UAE, like near Dubai, and you fly in on a military airplane, you land, and they run you through 3 days of military training. So you're in there with the soldiers, you're doing the same training that they get. And you're using stretchers that have blood and guts on them from like past things that have happened, right? So it's a bit of a shock to the system. And then, you know, you're in the UAE and it feels like you're on a school camp because it kind of is set up like a cool school camp. And then we flew into Afghanistan on a Hercules. And as soon as you kind of get in the airspace of Afghanistan, the tour host, like this army guy, Robbo was his name, everyone's got machine guns. They're like, right, we're above Afghanistan, put, you know, your helmet on, put your vest on. We got shot at while we were in the plane, and then you land in Afghanistan, and basically each base you go to, they give you a rundown. So you go in, you see the general or whoever, and they're like, look, we're expecting an attack tonight. You know, we've got, you know, a 70% chance that there's going to be missiles coming in tonight. So if you hear this siren, hit the deck, you know, you should be all right, unless it kind of lands on top of you. You know, you'd be pretty unlucky, but it was full on.
And so I gather they appreciate the band performing there too.
Oh, I loved it. Like some of the guys and girls had been there for like, you know, 10 months. And some of their jobs were so monotonous. Like they'd be in the watch out towers, and they'd be in a watch out tower overlooking the front gate they'd do that for 10 months. They do it every day for like 14, 15 hours a day. They just sit there and they do that for months and months and months and months. So just to have anyone come over and entertain them, just to break up the monotony of the day to day is a big thing. And they really did appreciate it. And they were cool to us too. They loved it. They loved it. So it was fun for us, and it was fun for them. So everyone was a winner.
Yeah. What about some of your more regular gigs with Bliss N Eso or 28 Days? Which are your more memorable moments?
I just did a tour with Unwritten Law, who were from San Diego. Um, that's the most kind of fresh one in my mind. I did that in February. That was kind of like the last tour that almost got in within the country, international tour. That was really cool because they're my all-time favorite band. So for me, that was, if this is the end for a while, then I wrapped it up in a good way. We did the Hotter Than Hell run, which is, I don't know, I've done that with 28 Days as well. And that's a really well-run festival. So that was really, really cool. Memorable gigs with Bliss N Eso. Pretty much everyone's memorable because they're always really, really good. 28 Days, we also play really good gigs too. So I've been lucky for like a good decade, but basically I've been very lucky with the bands that I've been able to play for.
Yeah. You teach drums. You've got the DK Drum Academy. What's the number one thing you try and instill in your students?
Depends kind of what age they are, and it depends where they're at with their drumming. If they're kind of younger people, I just try to make it fun. As simple as that. Like if you're a kid and you're playing drums, it should be fun. And if it's not fun, then no one wins, right? So everyone's a little bit different. Some people really want to work hard. Some people just want to do songs. Some people like kind of are doing it just because. I kind of feel out each person and get a bit of a sense of what they want out of it and why they're doing it. And then I kind of just work around that. So it's very individual, but on a, on a broad scale for everyone, it's got to be fun, and you got to keep people engaged. Got to keep them engaged, in order to progress forward. So that's pretty much the number one thing. Keep it fun, keep them engaged according to who they are and what they want to get out of it.
Yeah. So what are your revised plans for 2020?
My revised plans for 2020 are, I am basically just recording my online course, which is an enormous job. I've filmed 400 videos already. Filmed and edited 400, and I've got a lot yet to do. I've got 4 weeks left in lockdown. So I work for Monster Energy. Monster's we're kind of on pause. I'm working from home, but I can't do much from home. I've canned teaching for now. Everyone's on hold. So it literally has given me time to dive in and get this course done, and plans for that is, that's kind of what I want to do moving forward. Just create a whole bunch of courses, get really, really, really good at courses so people can jump on and get what they want from online stuff. So I've started that, which is an insanely large job. And I know why not many people have done it, because it's ridiculous. So I'm figuring that out firsthand, but it's cool. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, Dan Kerby, it's been great to catch up. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks heaps for having me.